In her Palo Alto penthouse, a venture capitalist's wife was about to discover betrayal's true price. What started as surprising her husband took a shocking turn when she overheard him dismissing their affair as purely transactional business. Samara Blake wasn't your typical corporate spouse. For years, she'd been Silicon Valley's most feared acquisition specialist, known for systematically destroying companies from within. When she heard Trevor's casual dismissal, she had no idea she was about to resurrect her predatory instincts. What began as devastating betrayal would become the ultimate hostile takeover, with her own husband as the target. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Samara's keycard clicked against the glass entry of their Palo Alto penthouse, the sound echoing through the marble foyer like a warning she hadn't yet learned to heed. The Seattle acquisition had closed 3 days early, a clean sweep that reminded her why she'd once been considered Silicon Valley's most ruthless dealmaker. She'd caught the red-eye home, imagining Trevor's surprise when she walked through their bedroom door. The house felt different in daylight, colder somehow, though the automated climate control maintained its precise 72 degrees. Her heels clicked against the Italian marble as she wheeled her travel bag toward the stairs, pausing when she heard Trevor's voice drifting from his study. "Purely transactional. She's just business, Marcus." Samara froze. Trevor's tone carried that particular blend of arrogance and calculation she recognized from board meetings, the voice he used when discussing portfolio companies he intended to gut. "The therapy sessions are perfect cover," Trevor continued, apparently unaware that his wife had returned early from what was supposed to be a week-long business trip. "Vivian has access to every power couple in the valley, their weaknesses, their secrets, their exit strategies. Half of Kleiner Perkins spills their guts to her every Tuesday afternoon." The blood in Samara's veins turned to ice water. Dr. Vivian Ashford, their marriage counselor, the woman who'd been sitting across from them for 6 months, nodding sympathetically as Samara confessed her fears about growing distant from her husband, her guilt over the career she'd abandoned to support his dreams. "You should see the intelligence she's gathered," Trevor's voice carried that familiar smugness, the same tone he'd used to describe particularly vulnerable startups to potential investors. "Client lists, financial positions, merger discussions they think are confidential. It's like having a direct line into every major deal flowing through Sandhill Road." Samara's hand tightened on her bag's handle. 6 months ago, Trevor had suggested couples therapy, said he wanted to strengthen their marriage, work through the growing distance between them. She'd been grateful, hopeful even. How perfectly, pathetically naive. "The best part?" Trevor chuckled, and the sound made Samara's skin crawl. "Samara thinks I'm having an affair. She's so focused on the personal betrayal she has no idea about the business implications. Honestly, Marcus, sometimes I think giving up her career made her soft. She used to be sharper than this." The words hit her like a physical blow. Not just the confirmation of infidelity, but the casual dismissal of everything she'd sacrificed. The partnership track at Goldman Sachs she'd abandoned, the hostile takeover expertise that had made her legendary before she turned 30, the edge she'd filed down to become the perfect venture capitalist's wife. Trevor was still talking, but Samara had stopped listening. Her mind was already shifting into a different mode, one she hadn't accessed in 3 years. The predatory focus that had made Silicon Valley's most feared acquisition specialist was awakening, stretching like a dormant muscle suddenly called back to work. She moved silently up the stairs, her training in corporate warfare returning with each step. In hostile takeovers, the first rule was intelligence gathering. Know your target better than they know themselves. Identify every vulnerability, every pressure point, every hidden weakness. The master bedroom felt like a stranger space now. The king-sized bed where Trevor had held her just days ago, whispering reassurances about their future. The walk-in closet where her business suits hung unused, replaced by the softer wardrobe of a supportive spouse. The vanity where she'd trained herself to look content, fulfilled, grateful for the life he'd given her.
She opened the antique armoire in the corner, the one Trevor assumed held linens. Inside, behind carefully arranged sheets, sat 3 banker's boxes. Her old life, archived but not discarded. Client files from her Goldman days, contact lists that read like a who's who of Silicon Valley power brokers. Strategic analyses that had made her reputation as the woman who could dismantle any company from the inside out. She'd been good at this. Better than good. She'd been legendary. Her phone buzzed with a text from Trevor. "Miss you. Can't wait for you to get back Friday. Working late tonight on the Meridian deal." The Meridian deal. She knew that name from the business journals. A clean tech startup with promising IP, but cash flow problems. The kind of company Trevor's fund typically vulture-picked when founders got desperate enough to accept predatory terms. Samara's smile was ice cold as she typed back, "Miss you too. Can't wait to hear all about your week." She opened her laptop and began typing an encrypted message to an email address she hadn't used in 3 years. Zara Okafor, former NSA, current ghost in the machine. The best digital intelligence specialist money could buy, and one of the few people who'd understood why Samara had been so effective at corporate dismantlement. Z. Need to discuss a potential acquisition. Complex target with significant personal stakes. Are you available for consultation? S.
The response came within minutes. Thought you were out of the game. Target must be interesting to bring you back. Very interesting. And very personal. Personal jobs are expensive and dangerous. I have both money and motivation. Send preliminary intel. If it's worth my time, we'll meet. Samara attached everything she could remember about Trevor's business structure. His fund's portfolio companies, key investors, recent SEC filings she'd seen scattered around his office. Her husband had always been careless with confidential information around her, assuming her retirement from finance had made her harmless. Another fundamental mistake in hostile takeovers. Never underestimate your opponent's capacity for strategic thinking. As her computer uploaded the files, Samara caught her reflection in the darkened window. The woman staring back looked different somehow, harder. The softness Trevor had cultivated in her was already beginning to burn away, revealing the cold calculation underneath. Her phone rang. Trevor's photo filled the screen, the same shot from their wedding day when she'd thought she was gaining a partner instead of a predator. "Hey, beautiful." His voice carried its familiar warmth, the charm that had convinced her to abandon everything for him. "How's Seattle?" "Productive," she said, testing her ability to maintain the facade. "Closed early, actually. Should be home Friday, as planned." "That's my girl, always ahead of schedule." There was pride in his voice, the condescending approval of someone who thought he understood her capabilities. "I've got good news about the Meridian deal. Think we might be able to close by month end." "Tell me about it." As Trevor launched into details about manipulating desperate founders and exploiting their cash flow crisis, Samara took notes. Not the supportive wife kind of notes, but the strategic intelligence kind. Every name he mentioned, every weakness he planned to exploit, every pressure point he intended to leverage. "Viviane thinks I'm being too aggressive," Trevor said, his voice dropping slightly. "She keeps suggesting I slow down, be more patient. Sometimes therapists don't understand business realities." The casual intimacy in his voice when discussing their marriage counselor made Samara's jaw clench, but her voice remained steady. "What do you think?" "I think aggressive wins. Always has, always will. Look at what you accomplished at Goldman. You didn't get there by being patient." Preparing and narrating the story took us a lot of time, so if you were enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. The irony was almost perfect. Trevor using her own former ruthlessness to justify his current betrayal, never realizing he was about to become intimate with exactly how aggressive she could be. After hanging up, Samara opened her old contact database. names she hadn't spoken to in years. Power brokers who'd respected her strategic mind before she'd chosen to subordinate it to Trevor's ambitions. She began composing messages, carefully crafted to seem like casual reconnections rather than strategic positioning. By midnight, she had responses from 12 of Silicon Valley's most connected dealmakers. By 2 a.m., she'd identified 17 points of vulnerability in Trevor's business empire. By dawn, she had the skeleton of a plan that would make her previous hostile takeovers look like gentle suggestions. Trevor thought he'd been playing her for 6 months. He had no idea she'd been unconsciously studying him for 3 years, learning every pattern, every weakness, every exploitable flaw in his business and personal life. He'd trained her well, just not the way he'd intended. As dawnlight crept through their bedroom windows, Samara realized the most profound truth of her situation. Trevor had made a fatal error in assuming that giving up her career had made her forget how to destroy someone completely. She was about to remind him why she'd been the most feared acquisition specialist in Silicon Valley. And this time, the target was personal. Samara's fingers moved across her laptop keyboard with the precision of a surgeon as dawnlight filtered through the penthouse windows. Sleep had become irrelevant. Her mind was operating on the pure adrenaline of strategic planning, the same focused intensity that once had made her Goldman Sachs' youngest partner. Zara's response had arrived at 4 a.m. Preliminary analysis complete. Your husband is sloppy. Meet me at Ritual Coffee, Mission District, 10 a.m. Come alone. At 8 a.m., Samara called Helena Cross. Samara Blake? Helena's voice carried the same razor-sharp efficiency Samara remembered from their Goldman days. Heard you'd gone domestic. What's the occasion? I need to discuss a potential acquisition, something that requires your particular expertise. A pause. Helena Cross didn't pause for anyone, except when calculating profit margins. Personal or professional? Both. Ah! Helena's tone shifted, carrying a note of approval. The most interesting kind. Tadich Grill, noon, private dining room. The Mission District felt grittier than Samara remembered. All exposed brick and artisanal coffee shops where tech workers pretended to be bohemian. Zara Okara sat in the corner of Ritual Coffee, her fingers dancing across 3 laptops simultaneously. She looked exactly as Samara remembered. Early 30s, Pakistani-American, with the intense focus of someone who saw patterns in chaos.
Your husband is an idiot, Zara said without preamble as Samara sat down. His password is Blackwood Capital 123, and he's been using the same one for 2 years. She turned one laptop toward Samara. The screen showed Trevor's email archives, calendar appointments, and financial statements laid out with surgical precision. Dr. Vivian Ashford isn't just sleeping with your husband, Zara continued, her voice dropping to a whisper. She's running a systematic intelligence operation. 43 high-net-worth clients, all tech executives or venture capitalists. She's been documenting their private communications, financial positions, and strategic plans. Samara studied the data streams flowing across Zara's screens. Selling to whom? Still tracing the money, but the patterns suggest Chinese tech competitors. Someone's paying big money for Silicon Valley insider information. The implications hit Samara like cold water. Trevor wasn't just cheating, he was compromised. Does he know? Doubtful. She's playing him as much as anyone else, maybe more, since she's using him to identify targets. Zara pulled up another window showing shell company structures. Look at this. Ashford's practice is funded through a maze of offshore entities. Professional work, NSA-level operational security. Samara memorized the company names, her mind already calculating how to exploit this intelligence. Trevor had stumbled into something far more dangerous than simple infidelity, and his arrogance had blinded him to the scope of his vulnerability. I need complete access to his business networks. Financial records, client communications, partnership agreements, everything. Zara's fingers paused over her keyboard. That level of access costs extra, and it's not just about money. This kind of operation leaves footprints. How much? 200,000 plus operational expenses. She didn't hesitate. Done. How soon? 72 hours for basic penetration, full access within a week. Zara's expression was unreadable. Whatever you're planning, it better be worse burning these bridges. It will be. As Samara walked toward her car, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Miss Blake, I believe we have mutual interests regarding the Blackwood family. Would you be interested in discussing a potential partnership? D. Corvelli. Dante Corvelli. The name triggered a memory from her Goldman days, whispered rumors about a private equity magnate who specialized in destroying companies that had wronged his family. She'd never met him, but his reputation preceded him like a shadow. She typed back, interested. When and where? Tonight. I'll send details. Samara smiled the first time since discovering Trevor's betrayal. She was no longer just planning revenge. She was assembling an army. Helena Cross arrived at To Ditch Grill, like a force of nature wrapped in Armani, her silver hair pulled back in a precision bun that had intimidated Fortune 500 CEOs for 2 decades. Trevor Blackwood, Helena said, settling into the private dining room's leather banquette. Augustus's disappointing son. I've been watching his fund circle the drain for months. Samara slid a tablet across the table, showing Zara's intelligence analysis. Helena's expression sharpened as she absorbed the financial data, her fingers moving in unconscious calculations. Cash flow crisis masked by creative accounting, leverage to his eyeballs on that downtown office building. 1 bad quarter from bankruptcy. She looked up, predatory interest gleaming in her steel-gray eyes. What's your timeline? 6 months to complete destruction. I want him to watch every piece fall. Helena's smile was winter cold. I can structure the building acquisition through a Luxembourg shell company. Clean paperwork, untraceable ownership. Your husband will think he's found a savior. Terms? Standard leaseback arrangement, then trigger punitive clauses when his next quarterly report shows losses. Triple rent, personal guarantees, liquidated damages. Helena's tone carried the satisfaction of an artist discussing her masterpiece. That evening, Samara sat across from Dr. Vivian Ashford in the therapist's Pacific Heights office, studying the woman who'd been systematically betraying her clients. Ashford was polished perfection, mid-40s, auburn hair, the kind of understated elegance that made powerful men confess their secrets. How was your trip to Seattle? Ashford asked, pen poised over her notepad. Productive. Sometimes distance provides clarity about what really matters. Ashford's eyes flickered with something that might have been concern. And what have you realized matters most? Control. I spent years building something meaningful, then gave it up for someone else's vision of my future. I'm wondering if that was a mistake. Many women struggle with maintaining their identity within marriage. It's natural to question sacrifices you've made. Samara watched the therapist's hands as she took notes. The expensive manicure, the wedding ring that Zara's research had revealed was fake, and the subtle tremor that suggested this conversation was making her nervous. Trevor seems concerned about my restlessness. He keeps suggesting I find new hobbies, volunteer work, as if my previous career was just a phase I've outgrown. How does that make you feel? Like he's forgotten who I used to be. Samara's smile was arctic. I was very good at what I did, Dr. Ashford. Some would say ruthless. People underestimated me once. They didn't make that mistake twice. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across Ashford's professional mask. Are you threatening someone, Samara? Just remembering my capabilities. Samara stood, leaving cash on the side table. Same time next week? Walking to her car, Samara's phone buzzed with confirmation from Helena. Building purchase complete. Your husband just signed his own execution warrant. The irony was perfect. Trevor thought he'd found salvation in a mysterious overseas investor willing to solve his cash flow problems.
He had no idea his wife now owned the ground beneath his feet. Phase 1 was complete. The web was beginning to tighten. 2 weeks later, Samara stood in the ballroom of the St. Francis Hotel, champagne flute in hand, watching Augustus Blackwood hold court among Silicon Valley's elite. The Pediatric Cancer Research Gala was the kind of event where deals were made between courses and enemies smiled over dessert. Samara Blake. Augustus's voice carried the authority of old money and older grudges. I wondered when you'd resurface. Trevor's father was exactly as she remembered, silver-haired, impeccably dressed, with the predatory elegance of someone who'd built an empire by destroying others. His handshake lingered a moment too long, his pale eyes assessing her like a potential acquisition. Mr. Blackwood. Samara's smile was perfectly calibrated, respectful but not submissive. Congratulations on the foundation's success. Trevor mentioned you were thinking of returning to work. Augustus sipped his whiskey, his tone carrying subtle disapproval. Corporate wives often struggle with retirement. Too much time, too little purpose. The casual dismissal was exactly what she'd expected. Augustus Blackwood believed women were decorative assets, useful for networking, but incapable of serious business. His blind spot would become her advantage. I'm considering some small investments. Nothing that would interfere with supporting Trevor, of course. Wise. A man needs his wife's full attention when building an empire. Augustus's expression hardened slightly, though I confess concern about Trevor's recent choices. His fund's performance has been disappointing. Samara filed that intelligence away. Augustus was already questioning his son's competence, another pressure point to exploit. He's been under stress, she said carefully. The Meridian deal is consuming all his attention. Meridian. Augustus's laugh was bitter. Chasing failing startups instead of building lasting value. In my day, we understood the difference between investment and gambling. The conversation was interrupted by Trevor's arrival, his face flushed with alcohol, and something that might have been desperation. He wrapped his arm around Samara's waist possessively, his grip tighter than necessary. "Father? Darling!" Trevor's voice carried forced cheer. "What are you two conspiring about?" "Your wife was explaining your current investment strategy. Perhaps you could enlighten me about why you're betting our family's reputation on clean tech speculation." Trevor's jaw tightened. "Meridian has revolutionary battery technology. The potential returns are theoretical," Augustus cut him off, "like most of your recent decisions." As father and son traded barbed comments, Samara's phone vibrated with an encrypted message from Zara. "Dante Corvelli acquired Meridian's debt portfolio. Your husband's prize investment is about to become his nightmare." Samara's smile widened as the implications crystallized. While Trevor had been chasing Meridian's founders, someone else had been positioning to control their financing. The startup he'd been using to justify his fund's existence was now owned by a man with generational hatred for the Blackwood family. "Excuse me," she murmured, stepping away from the increasingly heated conversation between Trevor and his father. Helena materialized at her elbow, elegant as always in midnight blue silk. "Phase 2 begins tomorrow," she said quietly. "I've structured the derivatives package exactly as we discussed. When Trevor's quarterly numbers drop, the cascade will be spectacular." "Timeline?" 6 weeks, maybe less if his Meridian deal collapses early. Helena's smile was predatory. "Your mysterious partner has excellent timing." Through the ballroom's windows, Samara could see the lights of Silicon Valley stretching towards the horizon, a landscape of dreams and ambitions, built on the bones of those who'd underestimated their opponents. Trevor taught her business was war by other means. He was about to learn she'd been an excellent student. Trevor's paranoia manifested in small details.
checking his phone obsessively, glancing over his shoulder during conversations, the way his jaw tightened when discussing business. 3 weeks into Samara's campaign, her husband was beginning to sense the walls closing in. "Someone's targeting the fund," Trevor announced over breakfast, his voice carrying an edge Samara hadn't heard since their early dating years. Meridian's debt got bought out by a shill company. The building management is making noise about lease terms. My biggest LP is asking uncomfortable questions. Samara buttered her toast with practiced calm. "Isn't that just market volatility? You've always said Silicon Valley goes through cycles." "This isn't cyclical." Trevor's fingers drummed against the marble countertop. "This is coordinated, professional. Someone who understands my business structure intimately." The irony was exquisite. Trevor was describing her methodology with clinical accuracy while staring directly at its architect. "Who would do something like that?" Samara asked, allowing concern to color her voice. "Corporate competitors, maybe, or someone with a personal grudge." Trevor's eyes narrowed. "I'm hiring Marcus Stone to investigate. Best private investigator in the Bay Area, former FBI, specializes in corporate espionage."
Samara filed the name away for Zara to handle. "That sounds expensive. Less expensive than letting enemies destroy everything I've built." That evening, Augustus Blackwood arrived for their monthly family dinner looking like a man attending a funeral. His disapproval filled the dining room like toxic gas, making every conversation stilted and artificial. "Your quarterly numbers," Augustus said without preamble, cutting into his steak with surgical precision. "They're catastrophic." Trevor's fork clattered against his plate. "Temporary setbacks. The market conditions are irrelevant." Augustus's voice carried the authority of someone who'd survived 3 market crashes. "Successful funds perform regardless of conditions. Your fund is hemorrhaging money." Samara watched the exchange with professional interest, noting how Trevor's desperation made him sloppy. His hands trembled slightly as he reached for his wine glass. His responses were reactive rather than strategic. Under pressure, her husband was revealing himself to be exactly what she'd suspected, a trust fund baby who'd never learned to fight his own battles. "The Meridian deal will turn everything around," Trevor insisted. "When their battery technology goes to market, if it goes to market." Augustus set down his silverware with deliberate precision. "I've been making inquiries. Their debt structure is compromised. Someone's positioned to control their entire operation." Trevor's face went white. "That's impossible. I have exclusive investment rights." "Rights mean nothing if the company can't service its obligations." Augustus's smile was winter cold. "Perhaps it's time to consider new management for the fund." Samara intervened before Trevor could explode. "Surely there are solutions," she said, her voice carrying just enough steel to command attention. "Trevor built this fund from nothing. One bad quarter doesn't erase years of success." Augustus studied her with new interest. "You seem unusually well-informed about financial structures, my dear." "I listen when my husband explains his work. Some wives actually pay attention to their partner's achievements." The subtle dig at Augustus's own failed marriages hit its mark. His expression shifted, carrying grudging respect for her loyalty and complete blindness to her true agenda. After Augustus left, Trevor paced their study like a caged predator, his paranoia reaching critical mass. "Someone's playing a long game against me," he muttered. "Professional, patient, methodical. This isn't random market forces." Samara poured herself wine, savoring the irony of comforting her husband while orchestrating his destruction. "Marcus Stone will find answers. He better, because whoever's doing this knows me, knows my weaknesses, my business relationships, my family dynamics." Trevor's voice dropped to a whisper. "They're inside my life somehow." How perfectly, devastatingly accurate. Marcus Stone's investigation led him exactly where Zara intended, straight to Dr. Vivian Ashford's carefully constructed web of deception. Samara watched through encrypted channels as false evidence materialized in Stone's files, painting the therapist as the architect of Trevor's destruction, rather than merely another player in a larger game.
Corporate espionage, Stone reported to Trevor during their meeting in the fund's conference room. Samara observed from the reception area, officially waiting to take Trevor to lunch while actually monitoring every word through surveillance equipment Zara had installed. Corporate espionage. Your therapist has been systematically targeting venture capitalists, 43 clients, all in compromising positions. She's selling intelligence to Chinese competitors. Trevor's face cycled through emotions. Betrayal, rage, then calculating fury. Vivian? That's impossible. She's been helping us, supporting our marriage. She's been mining your personal life for business intelligence. Stone slid a tablet across the table showing fabricated bank transfers and communication logs. The affair was professional, Mr. Blackwood. You were a mark, not a lover. Samara almost felt sorry for him. Almost. The pain in Trevor's voice when he whispered, professional, carried genuine anguish. Perhaps the first authentic emotion she'd seen from him in months. That evening, Trevor confronted Dr. Ashford in her office while Samara listened through the listening device Zara had planted during their last session. The conversation was brutal, desperate, and exactly what Samara had orchestrated. "You've been using me," Trevor's voice cracked with wounded pride. "Everything between us was a lie." "Not everything," Ashford replied, and for the first time she sounded genuinely rattled. "Trevor, you don't understand the full situation. I understand you've been selling my secrets to foreign competitors. I understand you've destroyed my fund, my reputation, my family relationships." Trevor's voice turned venomous. "I trusted you with everything. Your fund was failing before I ever met you. Your father's money kept you afloat, not your business acumen. I documented reality, not created it." Through her earpiece, Samara heard Trevor's sharp intake of breath. Even his mistress saw him as a fraud, a trust fund baby playing at being a businessman. "Who else knows?" Trevor demanded. "About the intelligence operation? No one you could identify. But there are other players in this game, Trevor. Someone's been orchestrating attacks on your business that have nothing to do with my work. Professional, systematic corporate warfare."
Samara's blood chilled. Ashford was getting too close to the truth. "My wife," Trevor whispered. "She's been acting strange, asking questions about the business, paying more attention to my calls." "Samara?" Ashford's laugh was bitter. "Your wife gave up a successful career to play house with you. She's not capable of this level of sophistication." But doubt had entered Trevor's voice. She was very good at what she did. Hostile takeovers, corporate dismantlement. "Was" being the operative phrase, Ashford said firmly. "People don't return from that kind of retirement. The edge dulls, the contacts go cold, the killer instinct atrophies." Samara smiled coldly as she listened. Dr. Ashford was about to learn exactly how wrong psychological profiling could be. Her phone buzzed with a message from Helena. Augustus cut Trevor's family funding. Final phase ready to activate. The perfect storm was beginning.
"I knew about your affair within hours of returning from Seattle." Samara opened one of the boxes, extracting a thick folder. "Your voicemail to Marcus about how transactional your relationship was, how she provided access to client intelligence. You were so proud of exploiting our marriage counselor for business advantage. That was different, was it?" Samara's voice cut through his protest like a blade. "You used our therapy sessions as corporate espionage. I used our marriage as strategic intelligence. The only difference is scale and execution." She stood, moving around the desk to face him directly. "You taught me well, Trevor. Business is war by other means. Relationships are portfolio investments. People are expendable assets when they no longer serve your objectives." Trevor's composure cracked as the full scope of his underestimation became clear. 3 years? You've been planning this for 3 years? Planning? No. Learning. Studying your business practices, your relationship patterns, your fundamental weaknesses. Samara's smile was predatory. "You thought giving up my career made me soft.
Instead, it gave me time to become expert in your vulnerabilities." She gestured to the documents spread across his desk. "Helena Cross structured the financial instruments that trapped your fund. Dante Corvelli, Augustus destroyed his family's business in the 1980s, acquired your debt portfolios. Zara O'Coffer provided the digital intelligence that revealed Dr. Ashford's espionage network." Trevor's face went white. "Dante Corvelli? The Corvelli shipping fortune? Your father made many enemies building his empire. I simply provided them with an opportunity for generational justice." Samara's voice carried satisfaction. "They were remarkably eager to participate once they understood the target." "My father cut your funding this morning. Apparently, trust fund babies who can't generate sustainable returns don't deserve family resources." Samara pulled out a legal document with Helena's firm's letterhead. "Your asset management company, your personal guarantees, your trust access, all transferred to shell companies I control." Trevor staggered backward as if physically struck. "You can't do this. We're married. Community property protects assets acquired during marriage, not debts voluntarily assumed through negligent business practices." Samara's tone was professorial. "I filed for legal separation 6 weeks ago, citing irreconcilable differences. Your infidelity provides grounds for fault-based divorce with full asset protection." The silence stretched between them like a chasm. Trevor's hands shook as he processed the totality of his destruction: professional, personal, and financial obliteration executed with corporate precision. "What do you want?" he finally whispered. Samara's smile was winter sharp. "I want you to understand exactly how thoroughly you underestimated me. I want you to realize that every lesson you taught me about ruthless business practices, I learned perfectly." She picked up a final document from the desk. "And I want you to sign this confession detailing your knowledge of Dr. Ashford's espionage activities." Trevor's laugh was bitter, broken. "And if I refuse? Then the FBI receives evidence of your complicity in industrial espionage, and you spend the next decade in federal prison instead of simply starting over with nothing." The perfect choice: destruction or annihilation. Samara had learned her lessons well. 1 month after Trevor signed his confession and vanished into the legal machinery of federal cooperation, Samara stood in the corner office that had once been his, watching San Francisco Bay through floor-to-ceiling windows. The building was hers now, along with the remains of Blackwood Capital, transformed into Blake Strategic Acquisitions. Victory tasted like expensive coffee and felt like expensive silence. Helena Cross found her there at sunset, 2 crystal glasses and a bottle of 30-year-old Macallan in her hands. "Celebrating or mourning?" Helena asked, settling into the leather chair across from Samara's new desk. "Wondering." Samara accepted the whiskey, noting how the amber liquid caught the dying light. "I've been thinking about what we become when we win." "We become what we were always meant to be." Helena's voice carried the satisfaction of someone who'd never questioned their nature. "Predators don't feel guilt about hunting, Samara. It's ecology." Through the window, Samara could see the lights of Silicon Valley beginning to twinkle, a landscape of dreams and ambitions, built on the bones of those who'd failed to evolve. Trevor was right about one thing: I did go soft during our marriage, but not in the way he thought. Meaning, I let myself believe love could coexist with weakness, that supporting someone else's vision was noble instead of strategic suicide. He cured me of that particular delusion. Helena leaned forward, her expression predatory. "I have a proposition. 3 more venture funds showing vulnerability, family money, generational wealth, all ripe for systematic acquisition. With your skills and my resources, we could control a significant portion of Sand Hill Road within 18 months. The offer hung between them like temptation made tangible. Samara could see the future Helena was painting, an empire built on corporate warfare, powered by the systematic destruction of those foolish enough to underestimate them. It would be profitable, efficient, and utterly without mercy. "I need time to consider," Samara said finally.
Helena's smile suggested she understood the answer was already decided. Of course. But don't wait too long. Nature abhors a vacuum, and Silicon Valley has plenty of apex predators eager to fill available niches. After Helena left, Samara's encrypted phone buzzed with a message from Dante Corvelli. Dinner tonight? I have something important to discuss. She found him at Atelier Cren, occupying a private dining room with the quiet authority of someone comfortable with power. Dante looked exactly as she'd imagined from their digital correspondence. Mid-40s, Italian elegance, eyes that missed nothing and revealed less. Congratulations on your victory, he said, raising his wine glass. Watching Trevor Blackwood's empire collapse was satisfying. Justice often is. Samara studied him across the candlelit table. Though I suspect your satisfaction runs deeper than mine. Generational, as you said. My grandfather built something beautiful before Augustus Blackwood destroyed it for profit. Your husband paid for his father's sins. And now? Now we decide what comes next. Dante leaned forward, his expression intensifying. I've been watching you work, Samara. Your methodology, your precision, your absolute commitment to strategic objectives. You're wasted on revenge. What are you suggesting? Partnership. Not the kind you had with Trevor, subordination disguised as collaboration. True partnership between equals. Dante's smile was warm but calculating. I have resources, connections, and decades of experience in corporate warfare. You have tactical brilliance and a talent for psychological manipulation that borders on artistry. Samara felt something shift inside her chest. Not quite hope, but the possibility of something beyond the hollow satisfaction of completed revenge. What kind of partnership? The kind that helps people like us, the underestimated, the betrayed, the brilliant spouses destroyed by narcissistic partners. Transform your personal vendetta into systematic justice. Help others reclaim what was stolen from them. Through the restaurant's windows, Samara could see the lights of the city spreading toward the horizon. Somewhere out there, other betrayed spouses were discovering affairs, other brilliant women were being dismissed as decorative assets, other victims were being told they were too soft for the real world. A business model built on empowerment, rather than pure destruction, she murmured. Exactly. Channel your transformation into something that builds, rather than merely destroys. For the first time in months, Samara smiled with something approaching genuine warmth. Perhaps becoming a monster was only the first step in a longer evolution. 6 months later, Samara stood before the Federal Bureau of Investigation's White-Collar Crime Division watching Dr. Vivian Ashford being led away in handcuffs. The former therapist had received 15 years for industrial espionage, a sentence that felt both just and insufficient. Closure? Dante asked, joining her on the courthouse steps. Resolution, Samara corrected. Closure suggests moving past something. I prefer integration, using the experience as foundation rather than obstacle. Their partnership had evolved into something neither had initially planned. Blake Corvelli Strategic Justice operated from the penthouse that had once housed Trevor's failed empire, but its mission bore little resemblance to traditional corporate warfare. They helped betrayed spouses reclaim stolen assets, exposed executive affairs that masked corporate fraud, and systematically dismantled the networks of powerful men who treated families like portfolio investments. The business model was elegant. Charge the guilty to fund justice for the innocent. Augustus Blackwood's grudging investment motivated more for respect for Samara's capabilities than affection for his daughter-in-law, provided initial capital. Within 6 months, they were profitable. Within a year, they became Silicon Valley's most feared and most necessary firm. The Peterson case files arrived this morning, Dante said, as they walked toward their shared Tesla. Tech CEO, affair with his CFO, wife discovering systematic asset transfer to offshore accounts. Samara reviewed the preliminary intelligence on her phone. Rebecca Peterson, former marketing executive who'd given up her career to support her husband's startup, now facing divorce proceedings designed to leave her with nothing while he retained company ownership built on her strategic insights. Timeline? Wife wants complete corporate destruction within 90 days. Husband's planning to take the company public after the divorce finalizes. Dante's smile carried familiar predatory satisfaction. He structured everything assuming his wife is a harmless housewife rather than a strategic asset. Amateur mistake. Samara felt the familiar stirring of tactical planning, the same focused intensity that had once made her Silicon Valley's most feared acquisition specialist. But now it served justice rather than just revenge. Their office building came into view, the same structure where Trevor had once dismissed his affair as purely transactional. The irony was perfect. His former empire now served those he'd considered expendable. That evening, Samara found herself in the study that had once been Trevor's, reviewing case files instead of corporate takeover plans. Through the windows, Silicon Valley's lights stretched toward the horizon, a landscape still built on dreams and ambitions, but now patrolled by those who remembered what it felt like to be underestimated. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Saw the news about Ashford's conviction. Thank you for everything. Starting law school next fall. T. Trevor. Somehow federal cooperation and financial ruin had taught him humility that success never could. His message carried no bitterness, only gratitude for the harsh education she had provided. Samara deleted the message without responding. Some lessons were meant to be permanent. She returned to the Peterson case files, already calculating how to dismantle another arrogant husband's empire. This time, though, the destruction would build something better in its place. Some monsters, she'd learned, could choose what they hunted, and she'd chosen to hunt monsters like the one she almost become. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.